It's a real pleasure to be with you today to discuss one of direct marketing's most critical topics, how to future-proof your revenue with monthly donors, or for our American friends, sustainers. According to Canada Health, the number of monthly gifts has increased by 9% in the last year. It's fairly significant. And monthly giving represents approximately 22% of total donations made through the Canada Health platform. So one thing's certainly clear, donors are increasingly saying yes to this very particular offering of monthly giving. And on the consumer side, the direction is kind of pointing the same way. There's been an explosion of subscription services over the last decade, and certainly in the recent years. Just for media and entertainment offerings alone, the average number of paid subscriptions per consumer was 12 in 2020. Just think of that, all those paid subscriptions. And millennials had the most, not a big surprise, 17. So the market is certainly receptive to a monthly offer. Add to this, we know that long-term value or lifetime value, however you want to define it in your own shop, is far greater than a single gift donor. So it's no wonder that charities are absolutely chasing this holy grail. I have the distinct pleasure of moderating our panel today. We're fortunate to have with us a panel of experts on the topic, and I hope we've got everyone assembled by now. So joining me as part of your panelists are Marissa Barber, who is the Director, Direct Response and Innovation at Canadian Cancer Society. And she's joined by Max Rivet, VP Group Account Director at ST. And joining Max from ST are two of our colleagues, Jess Tiberio and Candice Gregoris, both of whom are account directors at ST. And I should say that Canadian Cancer Society is a long-term client of ST, going back over 20 years. So we're really pleased and delighted to have Marissa Barber joining us today to really share her perspective along with the rest of the team. So before we begin, I do want to again take the time to welcome everyone who's taken time out of their busy schedule to join us today. Thank you. While we are coming together remotely today, we want to pause and reflect on the land where we live, work, and play, and the unique connections and relationships Indigenous persons and their ancestors have had with this place for thousands of years. The land that I'm on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse nations, Inuit and Métis peoples. I also want to acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed by the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty, signed by multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. So with that, we're going to dive in. Our plan for the next hour is to really take you through 4 aspects of monthly giving. Now, each of these, we could easily devote a whole hour or more, in fact. So we're really going to cover the waterfront this afternoon with you. So first up of the 4, the role of monthly giving in the direct marketing or individual giving program. What role does it play, and how can we leverage that to its fullest? Secondly, the levels of investment and how you can begin to think about this in your own shop. How do you dial that up? What's required from an investment perspective? Number 3, acquisition. We'll have to talk about acquisition in this space of monthly giving, and for good reason you're going to hear in a moment. But we're also going to cover within this the offer, the channels, and those channels and their ability to scale in this space. And lastly, but not least, is a retention upgrade. What role does retention upgrade play in furthering the revenue through this very important program, monthly giving? So my part, I'm going to hope to keep the conversation moving along. I will encourage all of you to come and think about questions that you have, and please put them in the chat. We'll be monitoring that, or Q&A, I should say. Post those into the Q&A. We'll monitor that, and we'll reserve about 10 to 15 minutes at the end of today's session to get to your questions. And we hope to get to as many of those as we can, and whatever is possible. So with that, let's dive in and talk about the first section, and get this esteemed panel in to get those perspectives. So Candace, you're first up. I really want to hear from you under the umbrella of the role of monthly giving and direct marketing program and individual giving. You know, we all know how important monthly giving programs are. From your perspective, what's the potential of monthly giving to drive gross revenue for organizations that you've worked with?
Well, you know, Donna, I think that's a really great question. And I think the real potential of a robust monthly giving file is the stability that it can bring to an organization. And it's one thing for me to say that in theory, that to have a large monthly file is stable, but the proof was in the pudding, as they say, as we made our way through the most acute phases of the pandemic. There was so much uncertainty going on, but for all of the clients that I had, and in looking at the general market out there, monthly giving files stayed very stable. There was no mass cancellation or retraction of those commitments. And for so many organizations, the pandemic meant events were gone. Face-to-face type of fundraising was just eliminated. And for those organizations that did have that healthy monthly file, it was sort of a shield against that instability. And those donors, monthly donors, they have made a commitment to your organization on a monthly basis. They've decided to attach themselves to you, and they help you weather a storm. And we're continuing to see that play out as we're going through the current sort of cost of living and inflation pressures that are out there. So it is for sure a peppy little machine that will keep things running if you look after it. And you asked a little bit about revenue. So let me just throw this in here off the top. Is in direct response, I know of one client where their monthly donor file is 24% of their donor file, but it accounted for 40% of their revenue. Now, I will say that 24% of the file is at the high end for an average charity, but it's worth investing in growth and maintaining that file, because monthly donors are 3 to 7 times more valuable over a 5-year period than a single gift donor. And 5 times the value is the average that we're seeing across the board. So I'd say that's why, Donna, is why it's important.
Okay, great, Candace, you got us off to a great start. So, I mean, I don't think there's anyone who's going to dispute the fact, and Candace, you really just kind of underline that in many ways, significant revenue driver across the board for organizations to the degree that you can invest and really grow the programs. So that's a good start. We're going to hear some more. Now, Marissa, you have varied experience. You've got the experience working at World Vision Canada prior, Right to Play as well, and of course now you're at Canadian Cancer Society. What's been your experience? You know, as you pick up on what Candace has just shared, how important has monthly giving been to these organizations' bottom line?
Well, first of all, can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Marvels of technology. Okay.
Welcome.
Thanks. So consistently across every not-for-profit I worked in, monthly giving has been a critical focus for growth and success. Whether you work in the areas of international development, you're working with Indigenous communities in Canada, or you're working in the area of cancer care and research, the ability to commit to sustainable long-term funding is really crucial. You rely on these monthly donations to be able to commit to the countries and communities and the research projects that you're going to sponsor. And these sustainable funds also impact an organizational ability to attain grants or match giving from corporations or major donors, which is something that you know may not immediately occur to people when we're talking about monthly giving. So additionally, it signals to your board of directors and corporate and major donors that the organization has a long-term forward-thinking plan for the future, which is so critical. And finally, from a donor relations perspective, it gives you permission to speak with your donors on a regular basis and keep them even more engaged in your work. So the good builds on the good.
Well, great. And you know, you just brought in the lens of within an organization, what the role of that is and how that can actually bolster other programs and the confidence of the organization around revenue development. So it's really, really key. Thank you for that, Marissa. Again, those of you listening in, if you've got questions for Marissa or Candace or the other panelists, please don't hesitate to start thinking about those and putting those in the Q&A. We welcome those. So let's shift gears. I mean, again, I did say off the top that it's going to be a light touch across these areas, but I'm going to shift now our focus to levels of investment because there's a lot of talk in the industry about this. And Max, want to bring you into the conversation. Wondering if you can talk to us about how, in your role at ST, you counsel your clients in terms of the level of investment that they can or they should make for monthly giving acquisition. You know, how do you weigh and help your clients weigh and consider factors such as the culture, the appetite for investment, and so on? There may be many factors to consider. I'm sure there are.
The big question at $1,000, what do we do from a money perspective? Well, first, I'm excited to be here and be discussing all that with all of you. And I'm glad that if you're joining this webinar, it shows that you're also taking this seriously, and it's great. So from a level of investment, I've seen a wide range of spectrum. And the good news is any level of investment will do. And I can give you the spectrum. I've seen organizations invest smaller amount of money working on messaging, increasing the prominence of the messaging, and having great success. I've seen a larger charity going with the big bow and going with a multi-channel new project and seeing that being successful. That was done with Médecins Sans Frontières under our hood. I know that we're all here and we're kind of like, what is that magical bullet? I think the expression is actually silver bullet. But I was actually on that front. There's many ways to get there. Is the short answer, and there's another expression for it. I think it's many ways to get to Rome. Just for example, I was at a conference last week, Engaging Network Conference, and one of the attendees was the UNHCR. And what the UNHCR revealed to all of us was that actually their now preferred method to acquire monthly donors is DITV, and they let go on face-to-face fundraising. So they are focusing only on DITV and let go of face-to-face. I'm rereading it twice because it is a big deal.
Yeah, that is a big deal.
Yeah, because in our industry, we all go to our big go-to, like face-to-face is good for, you know, the acquisition of monthly donors. But the point of that is there's many ways to get there. I know other organizations who have had great success with two-step acquisition, either with incentive or information. I also know other organizations that works very well with their direct mail program, and they acquire for each campaign about 60 monthly donors. And what's that cost of doing that? Zero. Right? Your campaign is profitable. You're making money and you're acquiring monthly donors. So that's why a lot of, and I can keep going with example like that. I also know organizations who rely heavily on face-to-face. So I'm not saying don't do face-to-face. I'm just saying there are many ways of getting there. So all of that to say, then the question is, okay, so where do we go? I would say start where you are. And it's kind of, okay, but that's easy to say, but that is the truth. And a good analogy is we've all been there. It's kind of, hey, January, I need to make a big health change in my life. When you do that, you look at the weightlifter who, you know, trained 5 times, eat 5 big protein things, and, you know, no, you don't. You start by looking, how many hours do I sleep? I should cut on eating Doritos every 2 nights and things like that, right? So it's a little bit the same with your program. If you already have a program focused on direct mail, start there. If you're heavily present in the social media sphere, then yes, look into two-step acquisition. So start where you are would be a big recommendation, and that will also, and that's why the amount of money invested varies significantly. But by starting where you are, this is where you're going to get the best return on your investment. Regardless of where you are in that journey, my last piece of advice, and that applies to across the board, is ensure that you have internal organizational alignment. And why is that important? Is all organizations have different objectives in there, and it's important to be all on the same page to measure success, to track KPI correctly. How many organizations are there? And many of them track differently. Just for example, you just acquire a monthly donor in March. Your fiscal year is January to December. How do you capture revenue, right? Do you capture it from March to December? Do you capture it just from March? And like people will say, oh yeah, about this and that. But often only the revenue from March is captured to that campaign. So that's $20. And then you evaluate your campaign based on growth. So then technically there's a disadvantage to acquiring monthly donors, because a one-time gift donor bring you more revenue from a growth than a sustainer in the state or a monthly donor in Canada. So those are a few quick example of things to keep in mind in a level of investment and initiative to do with your program in increasing monthly donor.
Right. Okay. Wow. Good, Max. There's a lot there. Oh my goodness, there's a lot. And you're right. I mean, you start where you are, because of course every program is different, and we don't want to assume that various organizations are all working with the same channel, because of course they're not. A bit of a surprise about pulling a little bit away from face-to-face, I have to say. So maybe there'll be time to pick that up again later in the Q&A. So Jeff, you've been listening in, and certainly to Max, but everyone else as well. So I wonder if you can just share with us a little bit. I mean, this math equation, and Max was kind of hinting at it, you know, you got on the acquisition side, but then you got the retention side. What does that look like for monthly donors in your experience, factoring the cost to acquire, and how do you kind of compute that with the long-term or the lifetime value?
Yeah, thanks so much, Donna. And I'm just want to say I'm so glad to be here to talk about something I'm really passionate about, these monthly donors. And to your point, I want to take a minute to talk about something we kind of the simple math of monthly givers or sustainers. And we all kind of know this equation, but I just want to indulge me for a minute, take just a moment to kind of review this all together. And I think there might be some slides if we have them. If not, I can just kind of talk through them. But it's this idea of, so we take average gift and the retention rate and the upgrade factor, and we kind of have that in this first part of the equation. And then from that, we subtract the cost, and that gives you the value. So if you go to the next slide, you can see, we're seeing this cost to acquire, and Max kind of alluded to this in what he was saying. It's one of those things, and you spoke about, Donna, like what's in your control. The cost to acquire has increased, just continues to kind of increase, and that does differ by channel. We gave this stat here. We were talking to a client, and they're seeing the cost to acquire be as high as $537. Now that's a more expensive channel, I believe, face to face. But that's a substantial investment you're making, and that's something that's a little bit out of your control. But what is in your control, if we go to the next slide, is this R and the U part of the equation, the retention rate and the upgrade factor. And if you look at this in one view, those are the levers that we can really pull and manipulate to make a real impact on the value of each of those monthly donors. So we use this to kind of really show how you can make impacts to your revenue just by kind of adjusting some things in the retention and the upgrade. We were talking to an organization, a humanitarian organization, and we were talking about this sustainer math and walking through this equation. And they kind of came to this realization. They were doing some number crunching on the side of their desk and came to the realization that if they increased their retention rate, so if they increased it by 1%, it equaled $438,000 for revenue. Wow. So moving the needle 1% on something that they actually handle. They have a department in-house that they can kind of handle their retention and their upgrade on their monthly donors. So if they can kind of find an area of opportunity to shore up that leaky bucket, that wonderful kind of analogy we all know and love, if they can plug one of those holes of the leaky bucket in a retention, that's almost $500,000 on their revenue without any kind of extra cost using a full-time staff. So just kind of shows the impact. And I know we're going to talk about retention upgrade a little bit later, but just the impact of those particular parts of the equation.
My goodness. Okay, that's great, Jess. Thank you for that. So did I hear you right? You said 1%, just moving the needle 1% on the retention side for that particular organization meant, what was the revenue? 400,000?
$438,000.
Wow. You know, that's so much of the focus is on acquisition. So I'm really delighted to hear that someone's paying attention to that and hopefully doing something about it. That's great. Yeah, we'll pick up that conversation. So we've covered levels of investment. You heard from Max, you've heard from Jess. We're going to shift focus yet again and move on to the third area of this topic today. And that is channel mix for acquisition and conversion. And Candace, we're going to put you back on the hot seat again to bring you into this conversation. You know, in your experience, and there's so much talk. You heard Max talk about various channels pulling out of one, moving in another. You know, what channel or what mix of channels are you seeing the best results for? And if I can do this as a two-parter, one for mature programs, but also for startups, an organization that's looking to start up a monthly giving program.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think what you're going to hear me say is I'm going to be reinforcing a lot of what Max has already said, but I'm going to hopefully pepper in a few other things that are helpful in there as well. So what I will say is what Max did say was start where you are. The important thing is to get that offer out there. So where did you get the donors you have now? Start in those channels. Start in the channels that you acquired them, because those are the people who have the allegiance to your cause. Add that monthly donor offer into the channels that you're already communicating in. So make sure that monthly ask is there and it's prominent. Say if you're doing direct mail, make sure it's prominent in your house and special campaigns, and add it to your acquisition mailings too, because you know that's the truth. Where are we getting our monthly donors from? We're either bringing them over from the donor file we already have, or we're bringing them in straight to acquisition. So mail, I think I've seen it do a great job in both. I've been really surprised with some acquisition campaigns I've worked on to see how robust the response is that we can sometimes get when you position that a call to action and making that case for why people to come over. I've seen that work really well in acquisition for direct mail, but absolutely be sure that you also have it in your special and house campaigns as well. I think one of the big hitters in terms of channel is telemarketing. That is where I have seen huge growth for organizations that are starting up. They start with their file of donors that they already have. They call those donors. They make the case as to why that they should be in a relationship with them. And I also say another one, particularly for younger files, where you are with your level of investment and risk tolerances, is that two-step digital conversion. The thing is to be consistent and commit to those channels, get on a regular pattern and cadence of asking, and set up communication plans for those groups of donors that you bring on. And we've also alluded to face-to-face and canvassers for straight to acquisition. That's not really a conversion method for people who are already on your file. I would say those particular methods, they do require a high level of initial investment, and that not every smaller organization can afford. So it's really about looking at what you can afford. So I would say those ones are for more mature programs, probably the same thing for DITV. I don't see that working for a lot of startup organizations. I would say regardless of the channels that you're going into and the mix that works well for you, is with your existing donors, always be gathering data from them. Are you gathering phone numbers from them to potentially do calling later on? Are you gathering email addresses for potential email campaigns or digital campaigns? Because you want to, maybe you're not ready for certain types of channels right now, but you want to be sure that you're well positioned in the future for, say, you have a bump in revenue and you're like, okay, now we're going to invest in some of these other channels. Well, are you prepared to do that? Have you laid the groundwork for that? So there's a lot of channels out there: telemarketing, face-to-face, two-step conversion, DITV, email campaigns. So going back to Max, start where you are, know your risk tolerance, what you're willing to spend, and what your internal resources are, so that you can actually steward then those donors effectively to make sure that you're retaining them, which I think Jess has just done a really great job of showing why that retention is so important.
Okay, great. Thanks, Candace. That's great. And you're not off the hook yet. I'm going to throw another question your way.
Okay.
So let's see. You covered. I mean, you covered channel. Let's just quickly talk through the offers. You know, and here's what I would say. You know, what makes for a great monthly giving offer in your opinion? And then, you know, how is that different, if at all, from single gift? And do you have any examples of monthly giving offers to share with those listening in, that either from your own work or something that you've seen in the market that you think is worth sharing?
Okay, so what I would say about what makes a single gift donor, and in some ways, you know, so what I would say what makes a single gift donor different from a monthly donor is they've chosen to be in an ongoing, long-term relationship with you. And so in terms of what makes a good offer is, it's your job, it's our job to convince them, prove to them, give them the evidence that entering into this long-term relationship with you is a great choice, right? They're choosing to align themselves to your cause. They're making this commitment. So that call to action has to connect to that part of them, right? You're looking for the people who have that alignment with your cause. You want to make sure that you're saying why it matters, both to the cause and to the beneficiaries of whoever your organization is serving. Does this offer show that I care? Does this offer show that this decision to commit is a good one? And oftentimes it's as simple as just letting the donor know that giving monthly is just the best way to give. It's the way to make the best long-term impact. I've seen offers out there as well that are maybe convenience forward. This is simple, just do this. It just simply comes out of your account once a month. So easy. And I think convenience can be part of the sales pitch, but I really think it's the relationship building that has to be there. It can't be convenience alone. People want to know that what they're going to do is going to be transformative. I've seen some branded programs. They can be great. I'm pulling this out of the sky, like become a defender or join the circle. And I think those things are also great too. And they can be great to, like I've said, build that identity. But I think all of those things are great, but they can't work unless we really say why it matters and how it's going to move the needle on whatever the cause is. I would also say what also makes the great offer is what I'm going to call right now the aftercare. So they've come on board. But be prepared to communicate. Do you have the resources to then be sure that you're communicating with them at the very least on an annual basis to tell that donor what you've done, how their ongoing giving has made a difference and made a long-term impact to what's out there. My advice, to be perfectly honest, would not be once a year, it would be at least twice, keep them updated. And then when you communicate, just be sure it's not too diluted, not too many other messages around it. So don't ask, or communicate and then also have a legacy ask and also have an event ask and also ask for an OTG gift, make sure that it's clear. You're showing why the relationship matters. You're showing how their giving will, like I said, be transformative. Did I cover it, Donna? Did I? All right, good.
I think you
Because I
did.
could
but you know
keep
what?
going, but other people have to talk.
Yeah, no, it's all good. And there's questions coming in. So whatever you didn't cover that is on, burning on people's minds, I think we'll get to a Q&A. So that this is good. And just, Marissa, if we can pick up this thread, because I think Candace laid out a really good kind of framework for thinking about offers, are they different to single gift and so on. You bring the perspective of Canadian Cancer Society. So, and what we do know with the conversations that we've had recently is that Canadian Cancer Society has a new monthly giving offer, and it's focused exclusively on research. And this would be your second monthly giving offer. Can you talk to us a bit about the thinking behind developing this new second monthly offer, and how is it being brought to market?
Sure. Yeah, last year, CCS launched a monthly giving offer exclusively focused on research. And again, supporting world-leading research has always been a major focus of our work. It's the first of our strategic pillars. So, for example, last year we invested over 44 million in high-impact research. We supported 190 lead researchers and enabled 111 of the most promising clinical trials. So clearly, this is key to us.
Yeah.
From a donor perspective, we conducted a survey in 2022, and we saw that over 70% of donors considered research to be the driving force in why they gave to CCS. So coming up with this product was kind of a no-brainer. So interestingly enough, I'm going to talk a little bit about channels as well in this, because we launched this product initially in DITV and digital only. And we actually have swung more back now into offering it in offline channels. So you're going to be seeing it in direct mailbox slips. We are out door to door in Western Canada right now, and we are pushing it in telemarketing. And we have a very generous match for this as well. And the reason we're doing this is monthly donations to research are a natural fit. Most research projects take a minimum of 5 years to get to clinical trial. So the conversations that you're having with prospective donors are really logical. They can understand that this costs a lot of money. There's a lot of this work going on, and it takes a long time. So my monthly donations are really going to support this. And picture channels like telemarketing or door to door, where you can have this conversation in person. It's a truly exciting area that shows so much true impact and exciting advancements. For example, in a recent interview with one of our lead researchers, Dr. Jonathan Irish, he indicated that the pace is accelerating so fast that in the last 5 years, he has seen more advances than all of the previous 25 in his career. So it's astounding, and it's really exciting to be able to have that conversation with a donor at the door, and they can feel that they're a part of this, and they're signing on to something really amazing that's going to help so many people. And then, of course, all these ongoing breakthroughs give us a lot of material for communicating with them in our journeys as well. So it kind of all came together perfectly to launch this product.
Wow, that's really great. I love so much of what you just said, which is, you leaned on donor research, I should say, but also the fact that, this offering makes perfect sense. It's a long-term play. That's what research is, and monthly giving is too. You're with us for the long haul. So it seems just even on those levels alone, like a perfect marriage. Okay, so I guess we need to stay tuned. And then, we haven't even talked, and it's outside of today, but, I'm thinking about, the cross marketing from, your established monthly giving program into this new offering. So there's lots of potential and lots of reasons to be excited. Well done. Fantastic. So we're going to shift. I'm going to keep with you, Marissa. We're going to shift our focus now and away from the channels, focus on retention and upgrade, which in fact is our last section before we close out and get to Q&A. So Marissa, maybe talk to us a bit about journeys, the acquisition, particularly if it's face-to-face or street, those first few critical months are so critical on the retention side, never mind the upgrade. it's such a critical time. You know, what are some of the best practices on welcoming new monthly donors that you've seen in the various roles that you've had?
So just as I want to start out by saying, sorry, I have to keep adjusting my
Yeah, no, you're good.
laptop.
Yeah.
I want to start out by saying that no one is doing this perfectly that I've seen. Everyone is learning and finessing and testing, trying new things as they go along.
Yeah.
There's just always so much to learn. There's just so many ways that one can improve, right? So, but first of all, there's some really basic tenets, and that's know your audience and make sure that they're given a welcome in the format that they like to be communicated with. Just like you're meeting them in channels where they hang out, how do they want to hear from you? It could be a call, it could be an email, it could be a printed welcome kit, it could be a text, because that can vary depending on your target group. So for example, while I was at World Vision, some of our older donors were really happy to get a welcome call, and they would chit chat and they just thought that was the greatest thing. And then we researched some of our younger donor demographics, and they said, do not call me ever.
Oh,
But
boy.
they were perfectly happy with an email or a text. They wanted their whole journey to be digital and found phone calls really annoying and invasive. So again, know your audience. But however you connect with your donor, just reinforce how their monthly donations are so crucial to the work of your organization. You're so grateful for them, as we talked about earlier, and preferably suppress asking them for more donations or upselling them for a period of time. Whatever is right for the organization. It could be 6 months, it could be 12 months, it could be you don't talk to them, but you might have a humanitarian emergency where you do.
Right.
Like, the strategies will differ, but don't come right at them with single gift offers right away. And then bring them on a journey through all the great work that you're doing. Put in front of them non-financial ways they can get more involved. Invite them to webinars, invite them to share content, invite them to sign petitions, or invite them to an event. Things like that. You want them to feel that they've joined a community, and it was a really smart thing for them to support you because you do cool stuff. And then keep your eye on retention and identify pain points, because there's frequently very set patterns in what happens with attrition, right? So are you finding that donors attrite after 3 months? That's kind of a critical point where, a few credit card payments have come out now. I guess this wasn't a single gift. So that signals that maybe your messaging was not clear enough, or that maybe certain of the reps were not communicating properly, or that's something to keep an eye on there. Are people falling off when their credit cards are expired and you're not being able to get them back? That will make you look at your arrears process. What does that look like? What do we need to be doing? So just strategically address these key pain points. It could mean shifting your channel mix, or it could mean improving, having your donor care team call people with a certain script when their credit cards are expired. So that helps. And finally, if you have the flexibility and the resources, ideally get your donors involved in creating their own journey. This was some of the most fun and exciting work that I've done in my past career. What do they really want to hear from you? How often and in what format? I think a lot of the time we're afraid to ask. We're afraid to ask because we think, oh, they're going to want the moon and I can't give it to them.
Right.
But you don't have to act on everything at once. Just get the information. What's the best journey for your particular donor group? And you can address things a bit at a time. It doesn't all have to be perfect all at once. Just take those steps bit by bit. And that's about it.
Okay, so first of all, that's a lot. It's great. I mean, it's a great combination of kind of, practical experience based on how many years of work in the field, Marissa. So it's really great. And I love the kind of approach of just, fine tuning as you go. It doesn't be perfect out of the gate. And I love your sense about listening to what the donors have to say and actually using that intel, whether it's anecdotally or through a formal survey to actually capture and build on your journeys and tweak it based on actually how they want to hear from you, how often, what the cadence is, and so on. Okay, so great. So we're near the wrap up stage. Jess, I'm going to throw you the last question and bring you back in here. And it's still on this topic of retention upgrade. You know, those of you listening may not know, but Jess and several of our colleagues, you're spearheading a new monthly giving initiative at FT. JAM Collective is the name. Maybe tell us a little bit about what JAM stands for, and really what is this all about, and what are you trying to solve for in the marketplace?
Yeah, so JAM Collective stands for Just About Monthlies. And it really started from this idea of wanting to create more thought leadership and benchmarking data, in particular around monthly and sustainer donors, and really with a pinpoint focus on retention and upgrade. We've kind of spoken about it, but we noticed in our conversations with a lot of our clients and potential clients that so much time, energy, money is being focused on acquisition, and often the retention and the upgrade are left for internal teams or just kind of put to the wayside to go with the automated process that comes with the acquisition source. And as we saw earlier, that retention and upgrade can have a real impact on your revenue. So we developed JAM Collective, where we are getting together a group of organizations across the United States and Canada, and we've started with our inaugural class, so we're really excited. We're in the first phase. And there's 4 parts to the JAM Collective. So we're currently in this first part, which is the donor journey mapping, which Marissa spoke so eloquently about the importance of having a journey that the donors own, having a thought about some type of journey for your donors. And so for each participant, we are mapping out their monthly or sustainer journeys by channel. And also by donor behavior. So you have a donor who joins and makes every payment. What does their donor journey look like? You have a donor who joins, makes a couple of payments, then to Marissa's point, you know, their credit card fails and that's it. So what's your recovery journey like? We have a donor who upgrades. What is their journey like? Is it different? Do you acknowledge the upgrade? How do you communicate to your donor in that way? So we are mapping all of this out. And in the meantime, we're also mystery shopping to make sure that the journey unfolds the way you've designed it to unfold. And we've already noticed some really great opportunities where we can, like a quick hit, fill the gap, stop that leak and say, hey, this is something that you thought was happening. It's not happening. Can we put something in place to fix this and make a quick win in terms of retention? All this data is then rolled up into the second part, which is the benchmarking report, which is when we put all of the journeys of all the members together so we can look at everyone's journey and notice how people are doing things differently, similarly, just to give participants an idea of where their journey stacks up against the other members of the collective and identify areas that they could improve their journeys, again, based on channel by channel. And then from the benchmarking, we go into our third section, which is the A/B testing. So we love to test. I think we're all direct response marketers. We love a good A/B test. So based on what we're seeing in the benchmarking data from what we saw in the donor journey mapping, we would develop some strategic A/B tests to try and improve the intention rate, right? Move that needle, the 1%. Where can we kind of make a difference in the program to help improve the upgrade rate and the retention rate? And then finally, the fourth section is the quarterly KPI roundtables, which would happen throughout the time that we have the collective. It's a kind of a 2-year process across the board, just because of the nature of monthly and sustaining giving. But these would be ongoing meetings where we would get around the Zoom table and kind of discuss the benchmarking data, discuss program details with some of the other members. We bring in guests and subject matter experts like on AI or someone in the for-profit business of subscribing services, and bring them in and have a moderated discussion and ask questions. Talk about pain points, talk about testing and what you're seeing. And it's really an important part of the collective that we're able to learn from each other, improve each other's programs, and kind of have this community of professionals who are coming together to talk about. We say the rule is no acquisition talk, although I'm sure it's going to creep in, but we can, just really focused on the retention and the upgrade. And that's kind of JAM, and we're presenting initial findings at Bridge in Washington in August. We're really excited. And like I said, we've already kind of found some great nuggets. So we can share some more information about JAM after the webinar. And Donna knows, you all know, I'm more than happy. I could go on and on about JAM Collective, and I will take every opportunity to talk about it. I think it's a really needed kind of nugget in our business, and I'm really excited that we're starting it, and we're going to start recruiting for the next class. So again, happy to talk to anyone and everyone who's interested in learning more about it.
You're not enthusiastic at all, Jess. No, that's great. And I'm really glad you mentioned, I mean, we're not in the business of, cross promoting, but why not when the conference is so great? And that is the Bridge conference that you just kind of tapped in. And I think those of you that are listening in, maybe you all know about it, but if you don't, as Jeff said, it is the conference that takes place outside of Washington, D.C. And it's fully, 100% a direct marketers conference, which, pre-COVID numbers had about 2,200 delegates attending. So there's lots of worthwhile information there. And as Jeff said, we're presenting, or the team is presenting, and that'll be in August 2nd to the 4th. Okay, so I'm going to hold my thanks to the panelists and to all of you joining towards the end, because I want to get to questions. And thanks, Jeff, for wrapping us up. That's kind of a formal, but I see lots of questions coming in. So I'm just going to pose these to the team as they've come in, and see if we can't get through as, at least provide preliminary answers to these and get through as many questions as we possibly can. So the first question that came in, I'm going to throw this to maybe Max and Candace to start. How would you suggest navigating a campaign to get monthly donors to increase the amount they give?
Sounds good. I can take a first response if you like. I'm seeing the 7 question. If you want, I'll leave it up to the team. Also, because there's only 9 minutes and I know there's a lot of questions, but I can give a shot of a 30-second answer to all of the question very quickly, because I know I've been there and you ask your question and it's like, nobody answered my question. It won't be like perfect, but I can try quickly if it helps, answering very briefly each answer, and my colleagues can jump in just in the interest of time. So how would you suggest navigating a campaign to get monthly donors to increase the amount they give? I would say the how depends on more the why. I would say give them a reason why to increase the monthly gift. You have that relationship, they are committed to you, so it's more about the why than the how. I think I would basically, the how is changing your messaging and the importance is the why. For example, you have a special project going in that you need funding for. That's a why. I don't like using that example because it's very organization focused versus donor focused, but you could potentially use the economic downturn, increase an amount of fee and things like that. Can you increase your donation by $1 or $2 per month? That would be super helpful for us, or things like that. If you are stuck about the why, you don't have a tangible, then maybe I would tap into what Marissa said. Ask them. Ask some of your existing monthly donor, why do they give? And you may get some more why in increasing the gift. 58 minutes, 6 more questions. Related to my prior question, the UNHCR example, how long does it take a large organization to transition out of face-to-face to a different channel for acquisition? It's a good question. There are different ways of doing it. I would say top of mind, I would go with, and hopefully nobody can hammer me, I would go 3 years. Why 3 years? I would say year 1, test. Like if you're in face-to-face, what's your cost of acquisition? Is it $350 like the industry benchmark? And you're talking about the ITV, do it, if you have the budget for it, do a test in the ITV. Obviously the test will be more expensive, so you have to calculate that. How many monthly donors did you acquire? Okay, it worked, good. Do it for 1 more year like with a portion of your database. That's year 2. Year 3, transition more towards actually the program. So especially for a large organization, before you get internal alignment, that's why I lean towards 2 to 3 years. You could do it brusquely, very quickly, like year 1, but they would be con to that. And I would be worried that you would lose some not momentum, you would lose some monthly donors in that process. So I would say 2 to 3 years. We're trying to move away from face-to-face being our primary acquisition channel, but it's hard to do the same volume in any other channel. What advice would you have to increase volume of monthly acquisition in other channel? It's a good question. I would I would say obviously the first thing that comes to my mind is testing, but it goes back to where you are with your other channels. Are you doing the same with your other channel? I don't know specifically, obviously, your program. I also tend to say, why do you want to move away? Is it because of monthly? Is it an organizational decision? Is it because you feel you capped it? There's a little bit more, it's a bigger question, I would say. Obviously, I would say start where you are and do some testing. They are good volume that you can acquire in other channels. But if you're not in those channels already, it's a bigger leap. Hence the prior number of years I was referring to. Getting there. Is there a recommendation on how to convey the benefit of long-term commitment of a monthly gift to a donor? The simplest way we found was one thing that Candice mentioned, and we got that through, I can tell you the full story, through a focus group actually, and the donors say basically, you should have told me it's the best way to help you. So putting best way to help is the short and fastest way that you can convince a donor to join you for a long-term commitment. Otherwise, I would say, I obviously talk to them. I would say include testimonial of other monthly donors as to why they give, their face, and things like that. That's what I can say in 30 seconds. Our charity doing the ITV through traditional TV or streaming channels? I would say I've seen a lot through traditional TV, but I've seen as well both. Once you've developed your video, you can do through both. Again, it depends on the scope of the multi-channel approach, but you've already put the effort in developing it. So go with both. What are your thoughts about including a welcome gift to joining the monthly donor program? I don't think it's a bad idea. There are many ways to incentivize monthly donor. It's about testing it. There's front-end gift, there's back-end gift, there's also information. So CAMH in this two-step acquisition, I've just used information booklet with an existing client of ours who are using back-end gift and sorry, that's for incentive in bringing them. In terms of thanking them, I would test. I'm backtracking, trying to go quick, but I miss a little part. In the welcome, you can test it and then see if there's a difference in retention and in commitment and measure that over maybe a 2-3 year period. I think that's all the time I have. I have to get back to you, Donna, now with the 3 minutes.
Okay, well, that's a good start. I mean, those are the questions that we have captured. It's I'll just say, as we wrap up, for those of you, if there's something that kind of springs to life from this conversation that we've been having that you want to ask, please don't be shy. Just reach out to us. There's my contact information and email, so you can get in touch. I want to say thank you to all of you for joining us and listening in and being part of this. Doesn't happen without an audience. And I want to say thank you to Marissa, to you from CCS, for being part of our band of bandits here at ST. It's been a real pleasure to have you. And I just want to say thank you to all of you, because we really have covered the waterfront. We've talked about the role of monthly giving within the broader context of direct marketing. We spoke about investing in the levels and what might be appropriate. We also covered channels and offers and scalability, and you can see questions coming from the audience related to that. So it's on people's minds, as it should be. And last but not least, we covered the important role of renewal or retention in the monthly giving space. It shouldn't be ignored with the sole focus being on acquisition. It's very much part of it. And as Jeff said, 1% can translate into, $400,000 or $430,000 in revenue. So we don't want to ignore that aspect of it. So thanks to all of you. Thanks to the panelists again, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We look forward to staying in touch, and have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank you.
Bye. Have a great day.